So we've now got your team up on screen, Adam. If you could read it out for our podcast listeners and let us know your thoughts for the coming game week.
Yeah, okay. So I've got McCarthy in goal, the legend that got a 7-pointer without a clean sheet. I've got James Justin, who I think should keep his place for Fulham at home, even with Pereira in the wings. I've got Chilwell, and who else have I got? I'm going to play Matt Target, I think, away at West Ham.
Yeah.
In midfield, I have Rashford, Son, Mane, and Grealish. And then up front, I've got Kane, Calvert-Lewin, and Bamford. I don't really know what to do this week, if I'm being honest, because I think I should. There was an option to wildcard last week, and I think this whenever wildcard, I want it to be a proactive wildcard. It would have been last week. I think it'll be reactive this week, so I'm not going to do it. What my gut says at the moment, Vardy looks great on paper, but I'm tempted at some point to put more money into midfield. So it could end up just being a 1 week punt, and then because ultimately I might want to get Salah and KDB in midfield at some point. So what I'm thinking about is the one player I do want is Bruno. So I could do Rashford to Bruno. Rashford is I'm not going to be owning him for past this game week. So I think Rashford to Bruno is probably what I'm thinking at the moment. The alternative is I could do Rashford to KDB and Kane to Vardy, which that sounds fairly appealing. But I think it could be a good week to captain Bruno. So his away record is incredible. It's just like that, and he's got 5 goals in his last 3 games. He just looks brilliant at the moment. So I'm tempted to bring Bruno in for Rashford and captain him, because I don't think many people will captain him this week.
I think they will, but I personally think they will, but only because he scored those couple of goals last night against. I was just surprised at the reaction last night, because everyone was, the kind of reaction is like, oh, Bruno, he's my captain now. If he'd have done it against top European team, I'd kind of understand it, but it was an absolute walk in the park. Now I don't really understand the reaction, but I think it
was an easy game, but and actually last night has had absolutely zero bearing on it. In fact, actually it's probably been more negative because he gave the penalty to Rashford. Rashford, I'm thinking, will that happen in the league? And then, no, my luck, it will happen this weekend. So the only thing I would say with Bruno, and I said this quite a while back, I think holding him is great because he will constantly get returns, but predicting his hauls is quite hard, I find. Maybe because he's got a lot of them away from home, which that's the big problem with captaincy. It's about predicting a haul, isn't it? You're not looking over a 4 or 5 game week period, and so that puts me off a little bit with Bruno. But I think I'm likely to do that move. The other captain options, Calvert-Lewin, and I think the thing putting me off of that is my bad experience captaining Grealish. Am I going for a non-premium player?
Only in price, not in form.
No, but I think the big difference is Everton are they're not a top 4 or 5 club, are they? That's where Liverpool are with Jota. That was I think with Calvin Phillips back, Leeds will be better defensively. So Calvert-Lewin could be a good shout.
We'll touch.
What would you do if you had my team other than wildcard? What would you do?
I would. That's a really good question. I don't think you need Kane and Son, I think, is the first thing. I said this a couple of weeks ago, I don't think you need them both because they both tend to be involved in the goals. This is my point earlier around Jota and Salah. I don't think you need them both, especially with the fixtures the way they are. I think that Kane becomes a really good option again. I think it's game week 16. I want to say, their fixtures really turn, nice. I think a double up then is really valid. But I think if you're thinking of Vardy for the longer term, in terms of the next month or so, I think Kane to Vardy and Vardy as captain is probably, a really, really good shout. I would leave Mane at Brighton. Rashford to Bruno is probably my second pick. But I think if you fancy Vardy, I would go Kane to Vardy as captain. If you want him for, kind of longer term, or maybe do both moves for a hit or whatever.
Yeah, that has crossed my mind. The thing that puts me off Vardy is with the amount of games coming up. Last season in December, he ended up missing a couple.
Yeah, he did.
And the problem with Brendan Rodgers, the news is usually a bit sketchy. And then you find out from the media, a half an hour before or whatever. So he was hobbling a bit around Liverpool as well. So I'll maybe wait to Friday on Vardy. I do agree. I understand about this getting rid of the Spurs double up. It probably would be a sensible thing to do.
Moritz Ball in the chat says, if I had your team, Adam, I would take a -44. We'll move on before Adam.
They think it's that bad. Yeah.
No. So we've now got my team up. So I've got Martinez in goals. I've got Creswell, Robertson, Reece James, and Chilwell as a back four at the moment. I've got Foden, so that's my real dilemma. I've got Son and Fernandes, and I then got Watkins, Calvert-Lewin, and Werner. So I think I had a really good week last week. Scored 88 points, and I think actually I was quite unlucky on Werner. I think I was unlucky on Watkins, who had the ball in his hands for the penalty.
Don't go there. Don't go there.
And I think I was quite unlucky on Bruno as well. But I know it's very much a divided opinion here. But he could have had a massive haul. I think I've got a decent team there. I haven't got any Liverpool attack, and I've only got Foden from the Man City attack. But I haven't taken a hit all season. But I'm planning my first hit, and it's because this for me, and I think we talked about this about a month or so ago, was game week 10 looks like a really good time for me. Or like wildcard time because of these massive fixture swings for lots of teams, particularly Man City. Jappe778 said Adam's team much better. Well, each to their own, Jappe.
No, thanks. That's good. That's good. Got a little bit of support.
You got a little bit of support me on this bit. But I'm actually thinking. So I have got 5 million sat there. Waiting to be spent actually, because I made a move last week. I can't remember the move I made actually, but I took out Kane for Calvert-Lewin last week, which gave me a bit of change. What I'm thinking of doing, I'm thinking of taking out Werner, which may sound a bit mad, but bear with me because I do think he's a great option, right? However, I can do Werner, Podence, and Burke, right? So I can do those three. 2. Bamford, who I think could match Werner's output over the coming weeks. Kevin De Bruyne and Diogo Jota. So that would be the -8. Now that it's very much spreading my funds. But like I said, I said a few weeks ago, and we're nearly in this period now, right, where we're going to have these lots of games. There will be random benchings. There will be injuries. There will be COVID issues. And having a rounded team for me at the moment is really, really important. So the only person then I would have in my team, only outfield player, would be Mitchell, who's actually fit, right? So he's not starting. But I quite like that team. It means I can keep Robertson. It means I've got a very, very good defence. It means I would have a midfield 5 of Foden, Son, Bruno, KDB and Jota, and a forward 3 of Watkins, Calvert-Lewin and Bamford. The only question is the -8.
Well, I've got another question for you.
Go on.
How are you gonna? Because you've got a real. I like the squad you'll have. How are you going to decide who to not start or who to bench each week? Well, that is going to be a bit of a dilemma.
It is. So, as you mentioned earlier, the fixtures for Chelsea are not the best. So I don't really mind benching James each week. He's only 5 million. And
oh, no, I meant your attackers more than anything.
Sorry, yeah. So I'll
I'm assuming you'll start seven attackers. So who would you bench?
I think my bench for this week would maybe be, it's either Foden, which seems so stupid because I've held him all season for this run, but it'd either be Foden or Watkins, because I obviously wouldn't bench Son, Bruno, KDB, Calvert-Lewin.
I think if you're genuinely considering benching Foden this week, Foden to Jota is the move to make.
No chance. I'm not getting rid of Foden ahead of this run. I've held, and this is my question. Am I just being stubborn out for stubborn's sake? But I look at the run that they've got.
Yeah.
And it is insane. And I don't mind having him on the bench because his ownership is quite low, right? If he does well in the next week, even if I bench him or not, right? If he starts and does well, people will be clamouring to get him in for the following week. Whereas, again, this is my point. I will already have him, and I'll be one step ahead again. But I take your point, and I've got a lot of thought to put into this with Foden. But my argument for him is he's only 6.5 million. He is. I don't mind kind of putting that money to the side almost, but just having him there for when it happens for him, which I'm sure it will. He can't not keep not playing him, right?
Yeah.
And these fixtures are so good, and he can also score off the bench as well, right? In this run. So just FPL Geordie there said, will he get the minutes though? And this is the obvious thing, right? This is the big question. I think he has. So he has to get minutes, right? I think these run of fixtures, they've got a run of games in December where they play 6 times in 4 weeks. He's not going to not play, right? He's going to play a couple of them, and he's good enough, as he's proved again this evening, as he's proved previously in the Champions League, as he's proved for England. He can score goals, right? And for 6.5 million sitting on my bench, I'm just happy to have him there. I would rather him there than Burke, just as an example, if you know what I mean.
Have you got a -4 move?
Yeah, my -4 move was just Werner and Podence out for KDB and Bamford, so it wasn't the Burke to Jota, but I want Jota in, and because if I don't, right, it means I'll be wanting to get in Jota next week, so I'm already booking in transfers. If that makes sense, instead of staying ahead of the curve almost. So I'm not decided yet, right? And it could be, as happens a lot of this time, an injury or something may kind of make the decision for me. But I've got some thinking time still. But I haven't taken any hits all season, and I'm seeing this as a bit of a mini wild card to set myself up very, very nicely for the next 4 weeks.
I think treat yourself to a hit.
I'm sure you do, because you want to see that.
How many points ahead of you? How many points ahead of me are you?
It's only about 20
8.
or something. That
narrows down the lead.
No,
that narrows it down. Yeah, go for a 12-point hit. Why not?
No. I think like I say, and another thing I'm doing this season, what I didn't do last season, was I'm following the way I want to play as well. So while I listen to everyone, I listen to the podcast. I listen to yourself. I read everything on Fantasy Football Hub and everything else. All that information just helps me make my mind up on what I want to do, which I didn't do last year. I just did what everyone else was doing. And
I think that I actually do think that's credit to you, because if you looked back at your wild card and you were adamant on certain players, Fernandes was one of them. The Liverpool double up and all of that, and I think on the whole, it's paid off for you because your loyalty to those players. When those other people were ditching them, you stuck by them. So I think fair play on that.
We will see, right? We'll see what happens there. But they're my thoughts at the moment.